We're going to do a bit more freewheeling. Can we bring the lights down just a little bit? Only because I can't see everybody, and I know there's people that I'm going to want to point out or mention during the course of this conversation.
Can y'all hear everything all right?
Yeah.
So, I am very fortunate that I work at the Dallas Morning News again. Because I now have access to the Dallas Times Herald archives. And I discovered today that the very first reference of Jeff Liles in the Dallas Times Herald was actually May 11th, 1986.
Oh, no, wait, it was way before that.
Well, that's the first one that I could find in the digital archive.
Believe it or not, in the 70s, I used to play in the Dallas Times Herald junior golf tournament.
All right, so I take it back. I did find those.
My tea time was in there.
I did find those. There was also a Jeff Liles who raced at one of the motor speedways around town as well.
And the world record holder for most consecutive free throws is named Jeff Liles.
That's right. So there were many references, but the first significant one was this one from May 11th, 1986. I know you can't see it, but that it is the Dallas City Interview.
Oh, was that Cynthia Rose right there?
That is correct.
Cynthia Rose is a phenomenal writer, not because of that, but she used to write for the Musical Express, the British music paper.
You were 23 years old.
Yeah.
Over the past 9 months, Jeff Liles, 23, has altered the nature of concert going for adventurous Dallasites.
That's very ambitious of her to say that.
A 1981 graduate of Richardson High School, Liles is responsible for booking the bands at Deep Ellum's Theater Gallery and Profit Bar. He also manages many popular local groups. He was interviewed for Dallas City by freelance writer Cynthia Rose. Do you remember the first question she asked you?
No.
It's the question that everybody still asks you today. How did you come to book all the acts for Theater Gallery? It is a thing that I see people still ask you about to this day. But that said, I wanted to ask you about the last question first. You say you've now come full circle in Dallas, she asked you. Do you know what you said about where you were born and your father being in charge of public relations for 7-Eleven, the Southland Corporation? That's a very big thing for him, a very personal thing, not just a PR thing, and I'm real proud of him because that's what it's about. He never told me to be anything either, but I always wanted to be a guitar player. And like a lot of parents, he saw that as a whole picture of drugs and failure. Yet somehow I've manipulated things so I'm doing the same thing as him, PR. And I'm in the music business, but I'm not on drugs.
Yeah.
That's exactly the thing I thought of when I read it. And I don't live in some seedy place, and it's not threatening or scary to him. Plus, it's something which can go beyond the four walls of a club, which can help people share a few life experiences, and that's just great by me.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a nice place to start, because you've come full circle 100 times in the course of the last 39 years since you gave that interview. And I sort of wonder, what does Jeff Liles today think about when he looks at this kid, where he was, and what he had yet to do? Because that kid is fresh-faced. He looks like he just stepped out of a modeling shoot in terms of what people thought 23-year-olds were supposed to look like in 1986.
Well, I was about to say, that photograph doesn't really reflect it, but I was wearing the first edition Air Jordans. That was what I was most proud of. I was the only person that hadn't had a pair of those shoes.
So what do you think about what that guy was and what this guy's become? Because it's interesting, because if we go all the way to September 1986, there's a little note. Jeff Liles, the booking agent for Deep Ellum nightclub, the Theater Gallery, has been hired as an independent promoter to book shows at the refurbished Longhorn Ballroom.
Yeah.
39 years ago.
Yeah.
Edwin, who's here, who owns this place and has the Longhorn Ballroom, that's a place where you spend a lot of time today.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating to me that you've gone a lot of places, done a lot of things, met a lot of people, been a lot of people, and yet in a lot of ways, you and I are similar in the fact that we've stayed in very much the same place, but don't think of ourselves as the same people.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So talk to me about that journey a little bit in terms of what this guy was, what your expectations were then, and how they lined up with what you've become.
That's a very, very broad stroke. But what I'll say about this, about the Longhorn in particular, is throughout the years, past when Dewey Groom owned it, other people had bought the Longhorn and tried to make it live up to its reputation, live up to what it was. And they tried and failed over and over again, all these different people, including the guy that I worked for the first time. And Edwin got it right. Finally, after all this time. Yeah. Edwin got it right.
Ira Zach was the first guy, right?
No, Ira was the guy who bought it from Dewey Groom.
Right.
And Ira had no background in live music. He owned a kind of a urban cowboy country disco place on Upper Greenville Avenue called the Bell Star, which was incredibly successful and popular. And he was kind of like this little mafia guy that was sitting in a corner there and like hold court every night at the Bell Star, and he was a big shot or whatever. And he made a bunch of money doing that. Somebody put a bug in his ear to buy the Longhorn Ballroom, and it kind of turned it into the same thing. And that wasn't gonna work. It's not a disco. It's not like the Bell Star was at all. So he didn't really know what he was doing, as far as like doing a live music venue. And he hired these other guys who had a background, like doing Concerts West and all those, not Concerts West, Eaton Page, I can't remember what it was, one of those 70s era, promotion companies that did like all the rock and roll tours that came through. And they couldn't get a grip on it either. And Ira had seen my name in the paper. I guess he had seen that article maybe that Cynthia had written, and called me up and asked me to come talk to him about, coming to work there. And I probably already told this story last time, but the other guy, who was the 70s guy, was sitting there in the office with him while he was interviewing me. And Ira told him to go over to his office. He wanted to talk to me in private. And then he buzzed in his security guy, Bill Pence, this guy who had a gun and a holster and everything, like cowboy mafia dude. Came walking in, and he told Bill, he said, go over there and tell Carl to get his shit and get out of here. Jeff's going to do this. And I hadn't known this guy 5 minutes, so I was like, am I really going to do this, all by myself? I was 23 years old, And I gave him my best shot, all things considered. But that's what he wanted, was a shift away from those 70s rock bands like Robin Trower and Mitch Ryder and all those Roadhouse rock and roll bands that played there, to new music. He wanted, he to his credit, saw that this new kind of alternative rock thing was happening in the mid-'80s, and that's the direction he wanted to go. And that first year, that I worked on, he never came to a single one of my shows. He was too busy at the Bell Star hanging out or whatever, and as long as the Longhorn was open, he was happy. And then he finally came to a show. It was Motorhead. And he came, actually, he didn't even last to the show. He was only there during sound check. And Lenny and Wendy O. Williams, who was one of the support acts that night, were getting in a big fight over who was going to get the big dressing room. And, Ira kind of cornered me in the sound booth. It's like, what is this shit? Who are these people you're putting in my building? And I'm like, well, first of all, he's a legend, Lenny. And I don't know about Wendy O. Williams, but people like it, Or whatever he goes, I don't want this in my building. And he went home and killed himself that night.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Really starting on a high note.
I had a big women's place, with all of these women, these holdover women from Dewey Groom's era. They all look like Loretta Lynn, And I'm, they're all in the office, and I'm trying to explain to them who the bottle surfers are. And, there was definitely a cultural disconnect there, and it was incredibly challenging to keep doing it,
The Plasmatics were a difficult band, but I had no idea.
Yeah. And Scratch Acid and the Chromax were on that show that night too, which is an incredible lineup, man. I mean, people still talk about it to this day. It's an amazing show.
Fela was also around that period too, right?
Fela Kuti, oh my God. That was my favorite show with the Longhorn ever. That show happened about a month before I started working there. And oh my God, that show was so amazing. First of all, I had no idea that many Nigerian people lived in Dallas. There was like 2,500 people all in there with these amazing clothes on. And it was an incredible just culture experience, you know. And Fela only played in America. I think he only toured maybe once. I think you saw him.
I saw him in Austin the same time when I was a freshman at UT on that same tour.
Yeah.
At the Austin Opera House. Or the City Coliseum.
I was at City Coliseum in
Yeah.
Austin. So a Nigerian promoter had put on that show at the Longhorn. So I didn't know him. I didn't know anything about it. I had anything to do with putting the show on. But I was still booking theater gallery actually at the time. We had Sandra Bernhardt that night. And she was throwing temper tantrums backstage. I was like, fuck it, I'm going to see Fela. And I just bailed out. Mike Dillon, who was the guy from Billy Goat and 10 Hands, the percussionist, he and I jumped in a van and took a bunch of acid and went to see Fela. And
But it says here you don't do drugs.
acid's not really a drug.
Oh, okay. Your mom's here. Can we ask?
It's been 35 years since I've taken acid, so I can talk about it.
All right.
But I don't know if y'all remember Liza Richardson, who was a DJ here on KRA and on KNON. She introduced him that night when they went on stage. And this was back when Liza was like a brand new radio DJ. You know, she had like 6 or 7 months on KNON and then shifted over to KRA.
That's when it was Liza, Christoritas.
Yeah, Latin Christoritas was a program director there, yeah. So she introduced Fela Kuti and that went on. And the show itself was just extraordinary. He would start a song and a group of people way off in the corner would jump up and they'd have a flag from like their province in Nigeria and they'd run through the audience with this flag, right? And then when the song was over, they'd sit down and then he'd start a different song and another group of people over here with their flag would jump up and they'd run through the audience. You know, it was just like routine that just like kept happening the whole night. And being on acid, it was all incredible. Yeah, it was like my introduction into anthropology. I was like just blown away by the whole thing. And that's one thing about acid, you know, you just like, you're not really taking it to have fun, you know, you take it and it just opens your mind up to this, you know, they say we only use 10% of our brains. This like helps you use like 20%. So you start thinking about things and seeing things a different way. And the whole evening was just incredibly profound.
You know, it's interesting. Jeff had asked me in the course of this to tell some of my own stories.
Absolutely.
I had very little interest in doing that, but I will tell you the Sandra Bernhardt story. Because when you mention, I can't hear the name Sandra Bernhardt without thinking of A, the Dallas Times Herald,
Yeah.
and B, Brian Wilson. And I will tell you why.
The Beach Boys, Brian Wilson?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Brian Wilson came to town to promote his autobiography. I was at the Times Herald, this was the pop music critic, shortly before the paper folded in '91. So Brian Wilson and I were doing the interview in the lobby of the Crescent Hotel.
Which is probably brand new at the time.
It was newish,
Yeah.
but Brian wasn't doing terribly well at the time. His shirt was unbuttoned in places, and it was a rough go of it.
Yeah, I think I know where this is going.
So at some point during the interview, Brian says, I've got to go to the bathroom. I said, I'll wait here. He said, come with me. I said, I'd rather not. And Brian said, no, I'm going to lose my train of thought. And so he talked like this, you know, I'm going to lose my train of thought. I said, all right. So I followed him to the bathroom with the tape recorder still going. I'm standing over him, behind him, while he's at the urinal. These people are there for meetings. They're in their suits and ties, and they're all rattling to themselves about the fact that Brian Wilson is using the urinal while the guy is standing behind him recording it. I can't find the tape, but I know somewhere I have the tape. So he wraps things up. We exit the bathroom. At that time, the men's room and the women's room faced each other. Sandra Bernhardt had been at Tommy's that night before. Sandra Bernhardt was coming out of the bathroom at the exact same time Brian Wilson is coming out of the bathroom. And she says, "Holy shit, it's Brian Wilson." And he goes, "Holy shit, it is." And we went back, and we finished the interview, and we got done. And he said, "You know, man, sometimes I get lost," as he was going back to his room. I said, "You mean in the hotel?" Brian Wilson looks at me and says, "No, man, in life." And that is why I love this job more than any other thing. For experiences like that with Brian Wilson, with Senator Bernhardt, and now with you. Because we've got to do this over the course of many, many times. That's not an applause-worthy story. But what's interesting to me is, as I think of the Times Herald, Lisa Taylor, my former boss at the Times Herald, was sitting in the front row.
Lisa was one of the first people that wrote about Deep Ellum, I should say, during the 80s.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because I actually printed out something that Lisa wrote, not knowing she was going to be here. She was the date book assistant editor. Here's a picture of you back in the dub team.
Oh, yeah.
This is from May 31st, 1987. Dennis Gonzalez is on the same page. Lisa was one of the first people, along with Clay McNear, at the Dallas Observer to write about local music.
Yep.
It just wasn't a thing that happened very much. Lisa wrote here about Mark Griffin, Mark Ridlin, about Living Christmas, the Killer Bees. I mean, Lisa introduced many of us to the local music that Jeff was putting on at these venues.
Lisa was also the first writer to write about reggae music here now.
Lisa was the biggest reggae music fan I knew.
Yeah.
That's why the Killer Bees are in here.
Right. That's what
But
we
my
did together.
favorite part of this isn't just about Decadent Dub Team, but the headline is Decadent Dub Team Keeping Busy in Deep Ellum Area. I like that headline. It just seems like it's a whole area. You're just doing stuff. You're keeping real busy in the neighborhood. But I'm going to read this. Lisa, again, I didn't know you were going to be here, so. Despite the police paddy wagons in Deep Ellum grabbing all the headlines, this is 38 years ago. It might as well be tomorrow. Bands that have holed up in this East Dallas area are continuing to make some arresting news of their own. Lisa, that's why you were my boss. Record executives from Capitol and RCA have been listening to Deep Ellum's Three on a Hill, Buck Pets, Horton Heat, Locos Gringos, Shallow Rain, Decadent Dub Team, Princess Tex, and Rigor Mortis, according to Jeff Liles, member of Decadent Dub Team. Speaking of DDT, the industrial rap group recorded its single Six Gun of the Mind for Island Records' Deep Ellum compilation album on Memorial Day. You know, I was thinking about this, because this is the second time we've done this, and we've done this many, many times in our regular lives. But I've always wondered, what is it like? Because those who can, do, you. Those who can, me, write about those who do. I've always wondered, what has it been like? Because we've never really talked about this. To have your life so thoroughly chronicled from the time you were in that Cynthia piece 23 till this very moment. There was a series of pieces about you just this week in the Observer. That must be a surreal thing, to be able to chronicle everything you've done, everything you've witnessed, everything you've taken part in, everything you've put on, everything you've released, and to be able to go back and say, that's when I did it, that's where I did it, that's how I did it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I'll tell you what, especially in the very beginning, if you're in a band or you're just starting to do your thing, whatever it is, creatively, and you see that somebody in the paper has noticed it, I mean, you're kind of on the fence up until that moment. Should I keep doing this or not? You know? And it's, you know, I kind of touched upon this last time. There are certain things like getting written about in the Observer or having George DeMarc play your song on a rock and roll alternative. Those are the moments really where you kind of realize, okay, I'm in this now. You know, I can't not do this anymore. You know, not that I had a whole lot of things in my skill set that I could have turned to, but, you know, but those moments are really important because you're always looking for a shred of validation somewhere, just something, somebody somewhere, even it could be as small as saying, hey man, I heard your new song, I love it. That kind of thing is enough to keep you going. And Lisa and Clay McNear and these other people that wrote about it, I mean, you wrote about it in the Times Herald too, they gave an infinite amount of encouragement, whether it was intended or not, to a lot of young musicians, a lot of artists and creative people who didn't know whether or not they were managing to connect with people. And just to have somebody, write about your song, it's huge.
But it's one thing to be written about. Like the first time you get written about, the second time, the 10th time, the 15th time. But there was a point that you stopped being a guy people were writing about and became a guy people were turning to. Whether it was A&R executives, whether it was journalists, whether it was other booking agents, you became a source, a go-to, a font of information, and a connector.
That's something I realized early, and what I mean by that is when he says A&R people, what he's talking about are talent scouts for record labels. And kind of the way that they went about doing their thing back then is most of them were, New York or LA or Nashville. What they did is they subscribed to all the weeklies, all the art weeklies in all the major metropolitan areas in the country. And that's how they kept tabs on what was going on in each city. So when A&R people started reaching out to me about who was worth coming to see and all that, the reason why is because they had subscribed to the Observer. They had subscribed to the
Right, but was it a responsibility that you were comfortable with because you went from being a guy promoting everyone to having to select specific people because they also represented you. If you wanted somebody from Capitol or Virgin or Island to promote Dallas, you wanted to pick the best of the best.
Yeah.
And that must have been difficult to have to figure out which of the bands, which of my friends am I going to tell somebody in LA about.
I didn't really give it that much thought. I basically just looked to see how many people were coming to their shows.
Yeah.
You can't, what these people, what the talent scouts were ultimately looking for were bands that were popular. So, I mean, you knew when the New Bohemians played, there was going to be 500 people there. When Rigor Mortis played, there was 300 people there. When Shallow Rain played, there was 250, 300 people. 300 Hill, same deal. All of these bands that first started, they had these groups of kids that went to their high school or lived in their neighborhoods or whatever. They were always there. And I'll tell you, the thing that made an impression on a lot of A&R people was they would look out in the audience at the people watching these bands, and the kids in the audience knew all the words to the songs. And that right there told them that they were connecting at a different level. When they weren't just making the scene, they were into the music. So that's what they're looking for. They're looking for something that nobody knows about outside of where they live, but also something that connects on a level where the audience is just into it. And you could just tell a lot of those bands, they'd be playing Butt Pets, kids in the audience would know the words to all the songs, and they didn't have a record out yet. How does that happen? Most people learn their favorite songs or the hooks or choruses of songs by hearing it on the radio over and over again. They knew the words just by seeing them play a few times, And guys like Peter Schmidt was 16 years old writing these songs that the lyrical content was told from the viewpoint of someone who was like 25 years old, who was already in their third or fourth relationship. Just how did this 16-year-old kid already know how to write these lyrics or compose these songs that, were about relationship dynamics,
Well, it was interesting, right? So last time we talked about the evolution of Dallas from cover bands to the scene that you became part of and became the biggest cheerleader of and promoter of. So it was interesting to me because I thought about this a great deal and going back and listening to some of those recordings. Because there were the bands, there were a number of country artists who were beginning to emerge from here in the late 70s.
Yeah.
There were bands like Bees Knees, and there were some sort of early 80s bands who had begun Ray Whitley Hubbard.
Yeah.
There certainly were Nerve Breakers and the whole BVV crowd.
Yeah.
Because it was interesting. We tend to sort of jump immediately to Deep Ellum while discounting things like the Hot Club.
Oh man, the Hot Club had original bands before Deep Ellum did.
Right.
You know, they had the Nerve-Wreckers and the Toys and NCM, and I mean, they were really the pioneers as far as like taking Dallas out of the copy band thing and putting original music in front of audiences.
How much were you a part of the Hot Club?
I was just a patron. I had to sneak in.
Yeah, I mean, did you? Because I also snuck in.
Yeah. I mean, Linda
Like
Lee, who was Mark Lee's wife, she ran the front door and she knew I wasn't old enough to get in. So I would have to sneak in the band's loading and then hide once I was in the club. Which, you know, was just part of it. You know, you did that. That's what you did.
I was lucky. I always looked 35.
I'll tell you an interesting Hot Club story real quick. My best friend at the time, Steve Lanier, and I went there to see Black Flag one night. And after the show, you know, we snuck in the band door and we snuck back out the band door when we were loading out. And Henry Rollins asked me, do you know where we might be able to stay tonight? And it just so happened Steve's mom was out of town. And Steve was like, yeah, come stay at my house, man. Far North Dallas, right by Northwood Junior High School. So Black Flag followed us in their van out to Steve's house and spent the night there, right? With all their sleeping bags all over the floor of his living room.
I'm sure they were very sweet. I'm sure they were very...
Dude, Henry Rollins sat at his kitchen table, at Steve's kitchen table, squeezing the cue ball all night while the other guys were asleep. And he was so intense, man. I was just like, this dude is, you know, I'm trying to talk to him, whatever. He's just like squeezing this cue ball, you know, over and over again. Anyway, I finally went home like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And then the next day, Steve calls me. He says, dude, those motherfuckers stole all our towels. They'd literally stolen all the bath towels out of their bathroom. And so, you know, Steve's trying to figure out how he's going to explain to his mother that all the bath towels just mysteriously disappeared, you know. And he was seriously considering driving to their next show in Austin to go see if he could get them back. You know, because what was he going to say? You know, how do your bath towels all disappear?
Look, man, my only Hot Club story involved getting our car towed from the Jack in the Box at Joe P. Carrasco, but that was it.
I can't believe that Jack in the Box is still there.
That Jack in the Box is still there.
45 years later, right by the gas pipe. Next time you're driving down Maple Avenue at the corner of Maple and Hondo, the Hot Club is now called Caliente. And the Jack in the Box is still there.
I drive by there frequently.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I think I said this last time, my bus route to junior high, to Spence Junior High, Alex Spence is where I went. We used to have to pick up a guy who lived over there, so the bus driver every day would let us stop and pull all the flyers off of the phone pole at Maple and Hondo. So that's why I have 100 Hot Club flyers in my house to this day. But we used to go see the Judys there regularly.
Yes.
They were my favorite. I thought they were a local band for a very long time.
I got another Hot Club story I got to tell you real quick about when Iggy Pop played there.
Mm-hmm.
Ken Shinomoto's here. He's a huge Iggy Pop fan. So.
And Ken, feel free to try. I want audience participation.
So Ken is a huge Iggy Pop fan. He'll appreciate it. The last song that was playing before we walked up here tonight is this song called "The Endless Sea," and it's on Iggy Pop's record "New Values." And "The Endless Sea" is this really slow, kind of dirge song that I believe is about heroin addiction.
They all are.
Yeah. So anyway, when Iggy Pop played at the Hot Club, he came out and started his show with The Endless Sea, which is an odd choice, because usually the band likes something really high energy to get the audience into the show or whatever. The Endless Sea is like 5.5 minutes long. It's a really slow, plodding song, right? And as it gets to the very end of it, this girl who was there, and I think she might have been a sorority girl who was there with her frat boyfriend, yelled out, "Iggy, I love you!" And he looks at her and goes, "Bitch, you just don't get it." And he turned around the band and played it again. So they started playing it a second time. And they played the whole 5-minute long song a second time, you know, and we're all kind of looking at each other going, "What's up?" And then they got to the end of the song and she did it again. And she yelled at him again. He goes, "You really don't get it, do you? Play it again." So they started playing it the third time, right? And we're about it's like 4 or 5 minutes into it. People were throwing beer bottles at him or whatever. You know, like what this, it was about to turn into a riot. So they finished the song, and then he ordered the band off the stage, and Iggy's standing up there by himself, and he goes, I think I'm gonna do a drum solo. So he got up there and just started pounding on the drums, and that's when the beer bottles really came out.
In case anybody wondered why Iggy Pop was playing the Hot Club.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing that happened at the Hot Club all the time. And thankfully, the band got back up there and they rallied and saved the show. I mean, the New Values record was an amazing record, and there were a lot of other amazing songs on that album that people really wanted to hear.
Well, it's interesting when I think of the Hot Club, and I think of that whole period because that's when I was certainly coming of age. And for anybody, I mean, I wasn't around for the Circle Theater, although I drive by it every day. It's still there. It's still there. I think about.
I've got an Iggy story, Robert.
Okay, go ahead.
I can't remember the venue. It was definitely not the Hot Club. But about 1980, I saw Iggy play with Joan Jett as the opening act. Joan wiped the floor with Iggy, and I'm a fan. But his best song was Rolling Stones' I'm Alright. You know it.
Right.
In fairness to Ig, I will say that when I told that story in the presence of Eric Amble, Roscoe, who was their guitar player then, who went on to play with Steve Earle and lots of other people, he said, in fairness to Iggy, he had just smoked 3 joints of angel dust. So that accounted for the quality of his performance.
Well, that may have been the same problem you had.
Well, I had another interaction with Iggy that was pretty interesting too. This was different. This was when he played at Trees, right? I was booking Trees, and right before he went on, his road manager came to me and said, Iggy really needs to warm up. He needs to go somewhere where he can do some calisthenics and stretch out or whatever. So can you find a couple of security guys and take him somewhere to do
Is it like Dewey Cox? He has to think about his entire life before he goes on stage?
Yes, listen to this. This is crazy, right? So I thought maybe we can go out in the side parking lot by Trees and he can go do it out there. So I got the Blair brothers who played in Hagfish. I said, y'all come with me real quick. You got to stand here and guard Iggy while he does jumping jacks. Or something like that. And they're like, huh? And I'm like, let's do it, okay? So he's standing out there in the parking lot, doing this thing where he's like trying to get all warmed up or whatever. And the Blair brothers, Zach and Donnie, are looking at me like, what the fuck is he doing, And then these 2 cops come walking up. And they see him doing this spastic thing or whatever. And they're like, they looked at me and is he on something? I go, no, that's a performer tonight.
But he may well have been on something apparently.
He was. I just didn't want him to get arrested because we had a house full of people there,
So I was thinking about the Hot Club. I was thinking about even further back. I was thinking about Mother Blues. I was thinking about Gertie's. I was thinking about the Electric Jungle.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the Electric Ballroom.
Yeah.
Well, no, there was the Electric
Electric
Jungle.
Ballroom was first. That was in the 70s.
Right.
Electric Jungle was in Deep Ellum. That's
Right.
when Nirvana played the first time.
I'm thinking about all these places kind of as they blend in for me. Certainly the Sportatorium. There was a number of places that you think about. Because I think we have this very interesting idea of Dallas. For many people, Dallas music begins in 1977. For many people, it begins in 86. For many people, it begins in the 1930s and 40s with Bob Wills.
And early 90s, too. Early grunge scene in 1990.
Well, for many people, it also begins in 1935 with the Dallas Jug Band and the Dallas String Band, some of the first bands ever recorded. For a lot of people, it begins at 508 Park Avenue.
Yeah.
It begins with Robert Johnson, Bob Wills, all like Presto Boys. There are so many. I think Dallas music is unheralded. I think it's underappreciated, and I think it's undersold. And it's always been interesting to me as someone like you who is a part of this story. What do you think we've gotten wrong about telling our story?
You know what? It's not what we got wrong, it's what we got right. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times when you think about a major metropolitan area and the music scene that comes from it, it's because of the linear sound, a singular sound that it had. New Orleans has jazz, and Seattle had grunge, Nashville is country. They all have a style of music. All the music in Dallas is different. You know what I'm saying? It's totally different. We had Rigor Mortis and the Dixie Chicks.
Look,
It's like
at one time, the biggest hip hop artist was from Dallas, the biggest
DOC.
country artist was from Dallas, the Dixie Chicks, the biggest R&B, Erica, the biggest metal band, Pantera, the biggest indie alt rock band, the Toadies. There was this period where a lot of chart-topping bands were from this area,
Yeah.
but it was undefinable because they all sounded so incredibly different. And the question has always been, in fact, when I was once working on a book about Texas music, focusing specifically on Dallas for this chapter, it was about has that divergence of styles done us right or done us wrong?
Oh, it's done us right.
Well, it's done us right,
Totally.
but it's
Because we're not
not
pigeonholed, doesn't mean a certain thing.
right. But it's also done us a disservice in selling us and telling our story to others. People don't come to Dallas thinking about the music the way they do in Nashville, the way they do in Seattle. Right? There
Well,
is.
listen, you lived in Los Angeles, so you know, when you have conversations about Dallas music, you have to tell people who's from Dallas.
Right.
You know, there isn't a singular sound. There isn't, you know, people don't talk about bands being from Dallas. They just hear them and they like them, and then you find out they're from Dallas later on. You know, a lot of people, when grunge was first happening in Seattle, when somebody said, oh, this band's from Seattle, you already knew what kind of music they played. You know, you already knew what it was going to be, which could be a positive, it can be a
When
good
you tell
thing.
people Laurel Canyon, they know what that sound
Exactly,
is.
the
Yeah,
70s, yeah.
sure. But it's interesting because you think about, and it's a thing that I've always struggled with because you have to define it for people. When you tell people Ray Charles put his first band together in South Dallas
Yeah.
at the Woodman's Hall off of Oakland Avenue
Yeah,
with a bunch of guys who went to Lincoln High School, nobody believes it.
yeah,
Because how could that have happened here?
yeah.
And I've always kind of wondered,
Johnny Taylor, same deal.
well, I mean, Johnny Taylor, Bobby Patterson,
Yeah.
and on and on.
Yeah,
I mean, there are hundreds of artists from here
yeah,
whose music you have to point to and go, well, this came from here, this came from here, there's a tree, and there's a branch, and there's a root, to explain how that is a uniquely Dallas sound. But that lack of a quick and easy definition, and I do think it's done us a disservice, not in a negative, but it's just kept us from ascending to the rightful place.
well, you know, I'm gonna respectfully disagree, just because I think that if we all had the same sound, then the artists, the second and third generation artists that came down the line after that would be compared to the other ones that sounded like that before. And you would also have them saying, oh, they're just a copy of so-and-so, you know, Alice in Chains was just a copy of Pearl Jam, it was just a copy of Nirvana, you know, or whatever. See, we were able to avoid that, you know, because everything was so different. None of us ever got pigeonholed as being just like somebody else. And I see great value in that breadth of diversity.
I'm not just, don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
I'm not bad-mouthing the diversity. I'm simply saying it's a harder sell.
yeah,
And that's why I have always said, fuck Austin's music scene. Dallas's was 100 times better at any moment in that time.
yeah. And this is something I guarantee you can clap, because that's true. This is something else. If you're looking for like a lineage or something or other that we can call our own, if any of the local writers or any of the local tastemakers or whatever had figured out this simple fact, that more female musicians come from Dallas-Fort Worth than soul artists come from Motown. Look at it. I mean, look, if you added up all the record sales of all the female artists that came from here, Nora, Dixie Chicks, Jessica Simpson, all the way down the line, St. Vincent, you know, and just say, hey, Edie,
Lisa Loeb.
Lisa Loeb. I mean, there are
I mean, it's a
dozens
lot.
of
It's a
them.
very diverse group, Sarah.
There are dozens of them. And if women were looking for a feminist way to, you know, position our music, you know, they could just own it. You know what I'm saying?
Look,
Because-
one of the first acts ever signed during that period when I was a music critic in the early 90s was Sarah Hickman.
Yeah,
Sarah went from playing with, you know, Poor Davids, went from playing at
Yeah.
El Dada, went from, you know, Expo to something on the Tonight Show.
yeah.
I don't think Sarah ever gets the credit she deserves as somebody who made Dallas music. scene.
Sarah's brilliant. Nora Jones, man. Nora Jones won 11 Grammy Awards. You know? She's from Dallas. I mean, you got.
I used to see her play, I used to see Nora, I used to take dates to see Nora play at Popolo's in Preston.
Yeah, when she was doing.
Yeah, she was the piano player at Popolo's when she was in high school. And
This
it was
is
all fun.
another interesting thing, Robert. There are 3 very well-known female artists who all went to the same high school,
Yes.
and they weren't even studying music. You know, Erica went there to study dance. Nora went there to study literary composition, and Edie went there for painting. You know, and they all ended up being singers. You know, it's because they were around all these other musicians and stuff. They were like, "Hey, man, we need a singer." You know what I'm saying? You know, and that's how they ended up doing it. But when you think about that density of all the female artists that have come from North Texas, it's extraordinary. You know, and when you think of Detroit, you think of Motown, you think of a certain kind of soul artist or whatever, Nashville country artist or whatever. The thing that we could own as a collective is all the female artists that have had this incredible impact. You know.
Absolutely. And this,
And they don't sound like
this is my whole point, I think, in a way, which is that we sit here and we talk about people who we haven't talked about in a long time. We think about these folks who made a significant impact, who had big sales, who brought a lot of media attention to this
It made
town
people happy.
for a moment, and made a lot of
Their
people
music
happy,
made people
filled
happy.
a ton of venues,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. And it's interesting to me that we don't have a place in this town that tells that story. We don't have a museum, we don't have a venue that, the Longhorn, and I will say this, Edwin has done a remarkable job.
It is remarkable.
Turning that into, it is the closest we have to a history of Dallas music.
Yes,
in
if
this
you've
city.
been there, you know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
There is a museum in there.
There is.
And something about that that's pretty unique. I mean, back in the day when I worked for Longhorn the first time, we had people fighting and the cops coming and gambling in the bathrooms and throwing furniture.
I was at the Two Live Cruise Show.
Yeah. Now, the
Show.
people that come to Longhorn, they're like the crowd at the Dallas Museum of Art. You know, they're walking around looking at everything, not realizing that this is what they were going to see that night. They thought they were just going to see a band.
Right.
You know, and then they walk in there and there's this whole huge exhibit that tells the story of 75 years of the Longhorn Bar. You know, which is, I mean, it took him probably 2.5, 3 years to get all that stuff together and find someone who could put it up in position in a way that it would be meaningful. And you can walk down the line of all those little window boxes and stuff and realize the whole history of the Longhorn Bar.
But see, this was a thing that there was a couple of music awards that we did at the Observer, where we had local art, we had musicians of today covering musicians of yesterday.
Yeah.
Whether it was Peter Schmidt doing an NCM song,
Yeah.
or Kim Pendleton doing the Five Americans, or there was this universe in which we've lost touch with, and I think that may be just the nature of the moment in which we find ourselves severing ourselves from history generally. But I do find that this city has a very tenuous understanding of and connection to its musical roots.
Well,
And it only
you were kind of
exists.
spoiled when you were at the Observer and you were putting together those compilation CDs that came out once a year.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you could tell by looking at the curation on it, the material that was on it, that there was paying homage to the.
It was Marshall Ivory, it was Ronnie Dawson.
Jazz, James Clay, I remember all
Yeah,
that.
all these guys.
Yeah.
And I fear that we have lost connection with and understanding of the significance of what Dallas has contributed
Yeah,
in musical culture.
no doubt.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
If I may. So, I'm a native here. I spent a lot of time in all of our cities. I actually live here in Houston now for 7 years. I defend Dallas to my dying day on a multitude of levels. And when we get into music in particular, and so Robert, if I may, something you touched upon in terms of, and forgive me for putting words in your mouth, but you said something about how the identity of Dallas music doesn't get the recognition it deserves. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, Dallas music as a whole, its contributions do not get the recognition.
Correct. And I couldn't agree more. When I have to explain to people that Stevie Ray Vaughan is from here, not from Austin, that's an ongoing conversation I have with perpetuity feels like. They all know Beyonce is from Houston,
Yeah.
but we have this lack of like tangible, I don't know,
He has a statue in Austin.
And
People
also-
in Austin get defensive.
We don't claim our musical heritage with the righteousness that it deserves.
Stevie was born, raised, and buried in Dallas.
Correct. Jeff, you are you are the walking, breathing museum that we actually need.
Never mind being called a museum, huh?
I'm 63. That's
I
all.
have no idea.
Jeff is a repository. Don't be a mausoleum.
If it wasn't for you guys doing this conversation would just be dead. And I
Well,
have-
listen, hey, the thing that Robert does that's amazing is he is kind of like this archivist mentality. You know, he goes and looks for all these live recordings, which it's amazing because back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s or whatever, you didn't ever hear live recordings of shows you had gone to.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was 25 or 30 years before I ever heard the live recording of Led Zeppelin playing in 1977. I never knew it existed. And Robert goes and digs and finds these recordings. I mean, the internet helps.
Every
us.
show they ever played at Memorial Auditorium exists on the internet.
Yeah.
Every second of every show they ever played here.
Which, you know, from a listener's, from an audience member standpoint, that's very different because really you're walking around with the memory of the show. And that's it. All you remember is how you experienced the show that night or whatever. And, you know, I have, you know, certain shows I went to that just were, to me, they were either amazing or they were disastrous for one reason. One thing happened or another that personally affected my ability to experience it or whatever. But going and finding an old recording of it and listening to it 30 years later is so different. You know,
Today I
it's
listened to Pearl Jam, November 12th, 1993 at Moody Coliseum.
Yeah.
I hated them before I went to that show.
Yeah.
I had actually been to the Tree show.
Oh, when there was 20 people.
And I was literally one of the 20 people.
Yeah.
And I know this only because there were 19 people when I left 3 songs in. Because I thought they were the worst band.
Well, the only people that were there back then, their drummer was Matt Chamberlain.
Yes.
He was the drummer of the New Bohemians, and everybody there was his friends.
That's why I went, because I knew the drummer.
Yeah, and that was it. And he quit the band.
And then Dave Abraziz, who I also knew, got the gig. And he
Matt
played.
got in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about, I just mentioned this to somebody earlier a few minutes ago before we started doing this. Matt, bless his heart, one of the most amazing drummers in the world. He's played with Tori Amos, played with Paul Simon when he was here a couple months ago. Matt left Pearl Jam to take the gig as house drummer on the Saturday Night Live band. Playing for Scale, $750 a week. That is a fucking bad career.
Because he also, yes, but he like me probably hated Pearl Jam.
Matt was too good to be in Pearl
I know.
Jam.
I was too good to hear him.
Yeah, if you ever saw 10 Hands back in the day, I mean, Matt Chamberlain was a beast on the
And I'll say this: the only reason I like those second and third Pearl Jam records,
David.
Dave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dave did a hell of a job.
We've already had that conversation tonight with a couple of people in the lobby. I know, man.
I posted that show today.
Yeah.
I'm on Blue Sky. I'm not on Twitter anymore. So that's where I put the live music. If you follow me on every Saturday, I'll put an old show from the Who in Memorial Auditorium or stuff like that.
It's always something amazing, and I love that. I love the fact that you do it, because nobody else is doing it. It means a lot.
Well, look, I again, it comes back to this thing. I am nostalgic for a lot of the stuff we're talking about. Jeff and I, by the way, wore shirts tonight about things we were going to talk about because we've gotten so old we needed visual prompts. So at some point I will ask him about Shoko and he will ask me about the Bronco Bowl. But I drove by the Bronco Bowl today on the way here.
Home Depot.
By which I mean the Home Depot.
Yeah.
Because I think about these things a lot. I think about that which we have left behind,
Yeah.
which seems like it was a lifetime ago, but it was only 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And when you first talked to me about doing this discussion, it's a thing we talk about all the time. Remember when we did this? Remember when this happened? Remember that Nirvana show? Remember this? It's all these things that we've sort of pieced together. And as I began this thing the last time, we're only doing this because Jeff's too lazy to write a book.
That's true.
So we have to capture these moments, these memories, these fragments while we still can.
And they
Because
don't want to read anyway. They would rather sit here and share these memories with their friends.
We read.
Can we do both?
well, look, my dear friend, one of my dearest friends, Michael Corcoran, whose picture was up there, died last year.
He wrote 4 books, I think 3 or 4.
But his 2 books that he left behind, one was published right after he died, one will be coming out, were about the Austin music scene. I don't want to, I was there for 4 years. Glass Eye, True Believers, Wild Seeds, Zeitgeist, these are all some of Doctor's Mom, some of my favorite, most formative bands, because I was in college in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Austin doesn't deserve, this is now like the 4th book about Austin music.
Yeah.
Where the fuck is the Dallas book? And I know Josh is working on one
Yeah.
about that period.
I think his main thing, I think, is
Depot. The
yeah,
Depot
it's
in the
about
late
Depot,
80s,
and
early
it's also
90s.
about the Edge radio station,
Right.
and how he was able to take a mainstream radio station and turn it into an alternative rock thing, which is
It's George Gamart without George. It's George Gamart story being told by Josh Brown.
yeah,
And your story. You've been interviewed for the book.
yeah.
Peter Schmidt has. I have not yet. I'm just going to tell everybody.
You will be.
Right, Peter, I've already understand that there are stories in which I am a figure, and I have been told that everything that I remember is apparently wrong. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I think about this a lot. I have 1,000 local albums at home. I have every local cassette ever given to me. I have Erykah Badu's demos.
Yeah.
I have this universe that doesn't exist anymore, except in our heads. And I'm kind of curious, as we're winding this discussion down, I don't want to keep everybody here super late, but I am kind of curious. Are there musicians or venues for folks out there, and you can shout them out, that are underappreciated in this town?
Or David's Pub.
Poor Davis for sure.
40-something years.
What's that?
Balcony Club.
Balcony Club, absolutely.
It's
Big Al
It's
Dupree.
closed
We
at
don't talk
4
about Big Al Dupree. We never talk about Big Al Dupree.
Strictly taboo.
One of the greats.
Yeah.
What's that?
I was just say balcony club. It's like
Yeah.
one of those.
Yeah.
We never talk about James Clay. We never talk about Marshall Ivory. We never talk about David Fathead Newman, who
Yeah.
was from here. We never. I was record shopping with my 22-year-old son today. He picked up a record. It was Red Garland. He goes, "Who's this?"
Oh, man.
I go, "He's from here."
Yeah.
He
You know,
played with
times
John
were about Red Garland all
Coltrane.
the
He
time.
played with Miles Davis.
Yeah.
He's from here.
Yeah.
The lineage of music. Buster Smith,
Yeah.
the man who taught Charlie Parker,
Yeah.
is from here.
Yeah.
Ornette Coleman from Florida.
Yeah.
Ornette Coleman. Next you go on about Caravan of Dreams.
I love Caravan of Dreams.
That's fine.
Hey, listen, the Caravan of Dreams building just opened back up. Someone needs to get that building and bring Caravan of Dreams back.
It's a long drive. It's just a long
It's a
drive.
long drive, but that place was so influential.
The thing I
serious.
love about Bronco Bowl, I just had to get on Inwood.
Yeah.
I just go to Inwood and take a ride on 4th Avenue. We were at the Sonic, and you could eat Sonic, and then go to the Bronco Bowl.
Yeah.
It's just the greatest place ever.
Hey, but Robert, I gotta say this about Caravan of Dreams. It was the first dedicated listening room in Dallas Fort Worth.
Yeah, Caravan's great.
You know what I'm saying? So,
I saw Chet Baker at the Caravan of
oh
Dreams.
my God.
Fort David's is older than Caravan of Dreams, baby.
Yeah, Fort Davis has been around 43 years, I believe.
So Caravan was after that.
Yeah, but I don't know. Caravan was more esoteric.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
Sun Ra, and yeah.
yeah, I mean, Timothy Leary, William Burroughs, those people would come there and do. I
Towns
mean,
Van Zant was at Fort David's.
yeah.
Come on.
D'Angelo was in Caravan of Dreams.
I mean, I went to both. I just think.
That's Lisa Taylor, my first boss, everybody.
Lisa's been a chaser for that.
Lisa Lisa, what was the name of your column for the Times Herald?
Oh, shut up.
It was called Night Moves.
She was a big Bob Seger
And I
fan.
can't, look, I can't give her any shit because I inherited Street Beat at the Observer. So, Night Moves and Street Beat. It's amazing that local music got covered at all.
Robert also, when I did a weekly column for the Observer, Robert named it.
That was the worst name.
Echoes and Reverberations is like a,
So catchy.
yeah, it's like I think it's like an homage to Lester Bangs. I always thought it was like,
Yeah, that's what it was.
yeah.
I'm just gonna keep talking about poor David. He had a place on McKinney Avenue. I mean, he brought people here none of us had heard about, and you better shut up when you were in his club.
Are you talking about David Carter?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta tell you a quick David Carter
He's
story.
not giving.
I love David.
He's
Listen.
retired, but nobody's, everybody's I love Mike Snyder, and they're a big party for him, but nobody's had one for David.
Yeah.
And I'm upset about that, obviously.
What's stopping you, Holmes?
Kinda done with the partying, buddy.
So I gotta tell a quick story.
You got some Night Moves left in you?
For folks who didn't know about Poor David's, first of all, the music scene in Dallas, the center of gravity from the music in Dallas has jumped all over town through the various decades. When we were in the 70s, it was on Northwest Highway with the Agora Ballroom and the Bijou and all that. And then the 80s, it was Lower Green.
Don't forget Lemon Avenue.
Lemon Avenue, yeah, with Mother Blues.
Gertie's.
Gertie's. And then during the 80s, Lower Greenville Avenue, we had Poor David's Pub, we had Tango, Video Bar, Nick's Uptown, the Arcadia Theater. That's where the center of gravity was. And then, of
Ada.
course,
You say Ada?
yeah, no, Ada was in the quadrant.
Yeah, Ada's going
Strictly Taboo also.
Strictly Taboo, a jazz club, yeah. Yeah. So,
Fast and cool.
when Poor David's Pub was really in
We're
full
all very
swing,
old.
there was a poet that lived here in town named Roxy Gordon.
Yeah.
And Roxy was a phenomenal guy. I loved him. He was just like our beatnik, kind of counterculture poet. He lived in the corner of Orem and Matilda, which is right behind where Poor David's Pub was. And it was one night where I'd gone to dinner with my girlfriend at the time, and we were walking back to my house in Orem, and we walked by Roxy's place, and I heard somebody like singing through the front door. I thought, let's go see who that is. And I went and knocked on the door, and it was Townes Van Zandt. And he was sitting there in the corner in his underwear, with his boots and his socks by the side of his chair, sitting there singing. And, Roxy invited us in. We're sitting here listening to the Townes, go through all of his songs or whatever, and all these people are drinking mezcal out of the bottle, And Roxy got up and went into the bathroom, went into the kitchen. And I followed him in there, and I was like, man, thank you so much for letting us to come in here and check this out. And Roxy's like, God damn it, can you take him with you? And I was like, why? He goes, he thinks all he has to do is sit in the corner and sing, he can stay here, he's been here a week. He literally had been playing at Poor David's. And I gotta tell you one more thing about David that's really interesting. When Edwin first opened this place, one of the first artists that Edwin really wanted to have here was Guy Clark.
Yay!
And, I knew who Guy Clark was. I didn't know any of his records or anything like that, but Edwin was very adamant about getting Guy Clark here. And Guy had a history with David Clark as a promoter. David was his guy. David had put on his shows at Poor David's Pub, he had put on his shows at the Arcadia Theater. They had a relationship that went through like 3 decades, and a lot of times artists are like that. They get a promoter that they work with and they won't stick with them. And, Edwin asked me to call the agent for Guy Clark and see, how much it would cost for us to get him to play here. And the agent immediately shut me down. No, he's got a promoter in Dallas. He's not taking offers from anybody else. I'm like, well, this is a really nice room, this would be great. And Edwin, to his credit, really understood. We weren't really on the radar yet, and we didn't have a marquee yet. We didn't have a phone. We were barely, we didn't have a liquor license yet. Oak Cliff was still a dry neighborhood, and we were still doing the dry club thing, or the private club thing. But Edwin, to his credit, really understood if we could get Guy Clark in here to play, that it would make people have to come here and check this place out. And so I called the agent back, And I said, how much is it gonna take? You know, how much is it gonna cost? And it was a ridiculous number, you know, I mean, the guy was trying to get me off the phone. You know, just stop calling me, dude. You know, he's got a promoter in Dallas. And I went back to Edwin and I said, what's our budget for this? I mean, and he goes, I don't care. Tell him however much it costs. We need Guy Clark here. So I called the guy back. I said, how much will it take? And it was a big, huge amount of money. I said, we'll do it, you know, or whatever. We'll do it, you know. And so we got the show. And Guy had just had knee surgery about 2 weeks prior to that. He was not in a good mood. He was very unpleasant. And this was kind of like Edwin's introduction into dealing with artist relations. Guy had this thing on his contract where he had to have an office chair that swiveled that didn't have any arms. Okay, so we thought, oh, we'll find one the day of the show, you know, we'll go buy one in Office Depot or some shit. You know, and it got to be the day of the show. And the first thing I asked, well, where's my office chair? You know, Ed was like, oh, I think we got one in the office or whatever. So he went and got the office chair and it had arms on it. He goes, that chair's got arms on it, damn it. So Edwin got out the screwdriver and started taking the arms off of it. He's sitting out here in the back parking lot, you know, taking the arms off the chair so Guy Clark could be happy, right? So Guy couldn't make it up the stairs. Our green room, our backstage is upstairs, which meant, you know, it was going to be trouble if he had to go to the bathroom. I mean, he was going to have to use the bathroom that the public uses, and artists hate doing that on the night of a show. So about halfway through his show, a guy decided he needed to go to the bathroom. And, you know, he kind of walked back here, Berlin, his guitar player, sat over here and kind of like kept the audience busy for a while. And then I was back there, I was the only person backstage. And I said, well, the bathroom's at the top of the stairs there. He's like, God damn it! And he started climbing. Each step he took on the staircase, you hear him go, ah! And the audience could hear it. You know, I knew the audience could hear it. And he's a big dude, too. And I went behind him, walking up the stairs, just waiting for him to fall backwards and crush me. You know, and he finally got all the way up to the top, and he was in there for like 15 minutes. While Berlin is out here, you know, kind of trying to buy time or whatever. But you know what? He got back out there and he finished the show. And exactly what Evan was after, was just getting a room full of people in here to see a legend like Guy Clark. It achieved our means to an end, and it really put us on the radar.
You know, David Clark's bathroom was much easier to access than
No,
yours.
if you're at Fort David, you didn't have your own bathroom. You had to go use the public bathroom if you were playing there.
Hey, Robert, can I share a story on that?
Oh, Edwin, yes, by all means.
So,
Evan, you want to come up here for a second? We have a third mic.
well,
Come up here.
I'm not gonna.
But the acoustics are so good, he doesn't need to.
So, when Jeff and I met, it's a long story, but I'll tell you about this concept we came up, which was storytellers at the Kessler. And Jeff and I, there's another thing you forgot to put in that story, is Guy Clark was one of our guys that we were gonna put in here. And we had 3 or 4 kind of artists when I built this room, and Guy was one of them, Lucinda was one of them, Nora's never played here, she's one of them, as we built this room out. And so I was gonna come up with a deal, Jeff said it was okay, if Led Zeppelin has a commercial on TV, they're not sellouts. So we went and got sponsors. And our sponsor was Methodist Hospital. And our sponsor was the local, you know, Domingo Garcia, you know, law firm. I mean, straight out of Rocky I. I mean, we didn't have Chico's bail bonds on there, like Bad News Bears, but we had sponsors. And it gave us a budget. But what we did on Storytellers at the Kessler, and this is Jeff's idea all the way, okay? We said, instead of playing 17, 18 song set, we want you to come in and play an 11 or 12 song set, and we want you to lead into the song. What were you thinking when you wrote the song? Okay? What was the backstory behind that? And instead of walking off the stage and coming back on for your encore, we would like you to pick your favorite music critic to interview you on the stage live, okay, for 10 minutes. Any questions, but they got to pick, okay? And my favorite 10 minutes, besides these 10 minutes, okay, was the great Joe Nick Petoskey was picked by Guy Clark.
Yeah.
One of the great writers of Texas music all around. I know you know who he is. And Joe Nick's got a way about him, he's got an oh by gosh by golly way. I would have just totally fumbled and rushed right into his and Town's relationship and what was going on. But about 3 minutes into that interview, okay, on stage, and then I'm gonna come back to Liles and why this is so important, guy brings up Towns, and Joe Nick leaps at it in his way, and they walk through the period of the 1960s in Houston, Texas, when LSD was still legal, and they were all out checking out Roki and the 13th floor elevators and Lightning Hopkins and just talking about the great folk scare. And what is magical about us telling our story, Robert, and this might be it, because I can't help you before 2010, but that man sitting next to you, the way he got the position with me is he wanted to come back to Dallas, and I didn't know anything about anything, and I said, we're not going to be open for a year and a half. And he said, well, I can create some video, and we can do the resurrection of the Kessler. So a full year and a half before we ever opened this building, Liles was bringing in artists that I'd never heard of. And they were singing in this open room, and we were telling our story about this building about to open up. And I had so many people come and say, I'm so sorry, I've never been to the Kessler yet. Hell, we weren't even open. And so for a year and a half, and now that I've opened up the Longhorn and the Heights Theater, it takes about a year and a half to 2 years to get people. And Liles, by capturing that video content, which I just used one today, our great friend Todd Schneider passed away. I don't know if you know Todd. I mean, he was a brilliant artist. And I looked through, and Liles had captured a piece of history. Probably 20 shows are up on the internet, or 20 clips are up on the internet from Todd Schneider. But there has to be 1,000 that Jeff has archived. When you talk about Guy Clark, it's that 10 minutes of Guy Clark on the stage. But today, when I made my post, and I'm the only guy that's probably, I still have an AOL account, and I've only posted on Facebook. I'm that guy, okay? But it's 10 minutes of Todd Schneider talking, and by the way, Todd had dropped acid that night and comes on our stage, and he goes off for 10 minutes. I didn't post a Todd Schneider song, covering Guy Clark, but he talks about his hero, Jerry Jeff Walker, and he talks about what happened to him, and they did cocaine, back in, like, when it was definitely way beyond Jerry Jeff's time to be doing that stuff. And he goes off in that story. Liles has grabbed that. So what I'll make a deal for Lisa's in the room, and you're in the room, Robert, and I know Liles, you say you can't do it. But Liles and I got you from 2010 to right now, okay? And it's going to be on video, and we're going to have to comb through 1,000 of those things to tell our modern history. And this right here, if there's other people in the room that want to go back from 2010 all the way back to, I know you're a big, Robert Johnson fan in the 1930s, you should be the one writing the book, Robert. You really should.
Let me do it. Edwin, all I took away from that story is that Joe Nick did a better job than I did with Joe Ely. That's all I took away from that story. That's good. But I really did a great job.
Hey, I got to mention something else too, real quick. The guy sitting right in front of Edwin there is Jesse Huey. Jesse Huey was a music writer for the Dallas Observer. And Jesse,
my colleague, Jesse and I work together.
Jesse is indirectly responsible for the Kessler existing. His kid was taking dance lessons from Lisa's wife. And I guess they had all gone out to dinner one night, and Edwin had mentioned that he had just bought this building for Lisa to do a dance studio for all these kids, because she had outgrown the space that she had a couple of blocks over. And Jesse just kind of casually off the cuff said, "You ought to do live music there." And the light bulb went off, and Edwin just took it from there. It's like, okay, we can do both, yeah.
When this place opened, didn't Kenny Withrow do guitar lessons?
Yeah.
Kenny Withrow did guitar lessons, Jesse's wife taught piano.
Yeah.
And this place almost wasn't just born to be a live music venue or a movie theater or anything like that. It's more like a civic center. It was a place where all kinds of stuff
I didn't
was
think of it as
always-
a community center.
Yeah.
So
And,
there was a question. I want to make sure we get the question right here.
I was in Minneapolis from 1990 to 2005 on the premises.
Can you stand up so everybody can hear you?
I'm calling that you guys from
That's
probably.
right.
And all that time, Minneapolis sound with all the big raves, and can you have a nationwide sound without iconic artists like Prince leading the way.
Yeah, but when you talk about Minneapolis, you're talking about not just Prince, but it's
Husker
also
Du.
the Replacements.
Yeah.
Husker Du.
Yeah.
It
So-
was
Well,
a
and
whole-
those were so niche back then, alternative, people worship Husker Du. Actually, Paul Westergaard came to my pharmacy one time, well,
I like that story. Go ahead. I love Paul Westerberg. I want to hear about his trip to the pharmacy.
I've got a better story.
That's a book title. Paul Westerberg came to my pharmacy.
I've got a better story. You know Michael Bland?
Yeah.
He's the drummer with Prince because Prince didn't sleep with him. He stayed with him a long time. He was with Prince longer than anybody. I was driving a cab because I can't talk enough during the day in the pharmacy. And I picked up Michael Bland, and he was all dreaded up like our friend here. And he said, "You're Michael Bland." He said, "How did you know who I was?" I said, "Because Parliament is not in town." And I took him from downtown Minneapolis all the way out to Paisley when Prince was the symbol. I said, "What do you do around Paisley?" He's a glyph. He's not a person. He said, "Around Paisley, we call him boss."
So your question was,
But can you have a sound, the grunge without Pearl Jam, like some, if Dallas had an iconic nationwide band, would the other bands have ridden their coattails?
see, that's a great question. And I think about this a lot because I think about the fact that there have been very influential bands from here. And just recently, I think about a band, but not famous. I think about a band like Bedhead.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite bands,
That's right.
ordained to the best musicians Wichita Falls ever bestowed upon Dallas. Tons of bands came after them that ripped off that sound.
Yeah.
Cody, and so forth.
Yeah.
But they weren't famous. They weren't household names. They were rock critic fans.
Yeah.
Like rock, talking about Poor Davis. Every time Richard Thompson came to town, every rock critic in town was a Poor Davis.
Yeah.
Richard Thompson was rock critic famous. Bedhead was rock critic famous. Toadies were famous. But they weren't brand name famous for Dallas. Like, even the Dixie Chicks, nobody thought of them as a Dallas band.
I did.
I know, but nobody outside of Dallas thought of them as
Yeah.
Dallas. They used to play at Joey Tomatoes.
Yeah, I don't remember. They asked me, the Dixie Chicks wanted me to be their manager. And, well, I went to go see them play at the place on McKinney Avenue.
Joey Tomatoes.
I was the only person in the audience. And I was like, how can I tell? I don't want to break their heart. I was managing Rigor Mortis at the time. There was no way. I also managed these, Dale Evans lookalikes who, who have a racist, implicitly racist and sexist name, I didn't know how I was going to be able to tell them, that I can't do this, or whatever. But I had to sit there and listen to the whole set. I couldn't just get up and walk out before they were over. I could have been a room full of people. I would have been able to pull that off. But I'm sitting there by myself watching them, do this thing. And that was, of course, before they got me a lead singer and kind of modernized their sound or whatever.
If I may, that's also what's so fascinating to me. Like, I'm going to come back to this gentleman just kind of hit the nail on the head, circling back to something we talked about. What is the distinct sound? And then we have all these artists. I mentioned Steve Ray Vaughan. People don't know they're fucking from here. And Dave and I grew up in Mesquite together. No one even knows that Zorro Fitzgerald is from DFW. Or is that this person?
He was the third drummer.
What's that?
After Dave was the third drummer.
Yes, you're correct. He was technically the third drummer, but versus the Vitalogy with Hugh Grant. He did along 2010. I'm just saying that we're missing something in our city where we're not identifying.
I know why. I can tell you why.
Tell me, please.
Well, Austin, there's a mystique about it being this really cool counterculture place. And South by Southwest happened, and everybody went down there. Everybody wanted to live to Austin. All the tech people wanted to move there. All the film people wanted to live, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Dallas has been known for three things.
Yes, TV show.
JFK, Dallas Cowboys, and that stupid fucking TV show. And none of them really are a reflection of what it's like to live in Dallas. And they certainly aren't a reflection of the creative aesthetic.
So how do we get that on the map?
So we tried, right? So Lisa, what was the name of the music? We did try a music thing here in the 90s. Teresa LaBarbera tried a thing. What was it
Yeah,
called?
Dimensions of Dallas.
The Dimensions of Dallas. So Dallas did try for 3 or 4 years a South by Southwest competitor.
Yeah,
Never took off
no.
because it was Dallas.
Yeah.
You know, before there was ever a South by Southwest, there was a thing in New York City called a New Music
I
Seminar.
used to go all the time.
I did too. I went every year, and then people from all over the country went there.
That's where I met Liles when he was just playing in a booth.
Dude, the first time I went there with Jim Heath when he was just starting Reverend Horton Heath. And we got there at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're just wandering around. We're going to stay at the Chelsea Hotel. We're just wandering around New York City, and we see the tour bus for Asleep at the Wheel parked in front of the Lone Star Cafe. And Jim's like, I know those guys. So we walked over there and knocked on the window of the bus, and Ray Benson got out. Hey, Jim, what's going on? Y'all come right up here. So they smoked us out. We're sitting there like 3 in the morning, you know, with Ray Benson getting stoned in Manhattan. And I look over and there's all these credentials for this thing called the New Music Seminar. And Ray's like, we gotta be in Connecticut in the morning. If you guys want to take these, go for it. So we walked around for a week pretending we were asleep at the wheel. And people were coming up to us, you know, and these credentials cost like $500 a piece. You know, they got you into all the you know, the shows and all that. And people coming up to us, man, I love you guys, you know. Like, we love you too, man.
But it's interesting.
And
So-
South by Southwest is a ripoff of New Music
Right,
Seminar. That's what
but-
it is.
What was interesting to me was, and a lot of people don't realize this, Dallas was the regional distribution hub for every record label.
Yeah.
So we actually had this moment.
And by regional, he means like 5 states.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also something significant to keep in mind, is that we were also this close to being Nashville. Had it not been for the death of one man who choked to death on the cleaning fluid in his recording studio, Dallas would have been Nashville.
Who was that?
CBS Records, Columbia Records, was very close to coming to Dallas because Jim Beck had a recording studio. He was a producer and he was a writer. Jim Beck actually co-wrote and produced If You Got the Money, I Got the Time by Lefty Frizzell. He had a studio on Ross Avenue downtown. Then it was moved to Forest Avenue in South Dallas next to the Forest Theater. In fact, that building is still there, though it's being renovated as part of the Forest renovation. Jim Beck died on Forest Avenue because he just suffocated on his own, when he was cleaning his console, and he ended up choking to death on the fluid. But that said, Columbia Records was ready to come here. They were gonna set up shop in Dallas.
And Willie was signed to Columbia. And
Uh-huh.
I think he recorded Red-Headed Stranger at the Jingle Studio.
In Garland.
Yeah.
Right. So there were these moments, right? Summit Studio was here, Summit Sound was here. There were
Yeah,
these
Summit
moments.
Net.
The Rolling Stones did their rehearsal there on their
Yeah.
tour. There were these moments where we came this close. And it was circumstances that prohibited Dallas from being the jazz capital, the country capital. I don't think we're ever going to be, obviously CBGB and Max's made New York the punk capital. But we were close.
You know, and a good book into that is Shoko.
Well, you were on the shirt, so,
Yeah.
so you prompted me to remember Shoko.
Yeah.
Because
Shoko, I don't know if you guys know about Shoko or not, but during the 70s and 80s, they used to build the production rigs for like the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin and all these huge international touring acts. And their facility was based here in Dallas.
there's
And
3 guys from Dallas.
yeah,
Jack Counties,
Yeah.
Jack Mixon, and Rusty, whose last name I forget. Somebody knows, right?
Mike, actually, our sound tech tonight was a Shoko alumni.
Ruche.
Right. So that was they redefined concerts
They
in the
did.
post-Woodstock era.
Yep.
They made, without Dallas, without 3 guys from Dallas,
Yeah.
without that company, concerts would not have looked the same or sounded the same. They hated the way concerts sounded.
Yeah.
Because if you go back and listen to these bootlegs, go back and listen to the way the shows sounded at Memorial
Look at the
Auditorium.
photos of Jimi Hendrix playing at State Fair.
It's just these speakers.
Yeah, it's barely.
It's not the
barely
stacks.
anything there.
They didn't, before
Yeah.
Shoko, nobody hung giant speakers from the
Yeah.
ceilings. Dallas redefined the way concerts looked and the way they sounded because of 3 guys from here.
Yeah. And another thing that was cool about Shoko was bands would come here and rehearse for a week or 2 before they went on tour. A lot of times when you look at a band's tour schedule, their tour always started in Dallas. And the reason why is because they built the stage. They built all the production stuff here. And Dallas was kind of like the guinea pig show. You know, if anything went wrong, then they quickly went back to the shop to fix it before they took the thing and put it in a semi.
Queen at Memorial Auditorium, 1978. That is all because of Shoko. Go back and look at the way that show is lit.
Yeah,
Because you can actually see Memorial. Go back and watch the bicycle races video
yeah,
that was shot at Memorial with a Shoko rig.
right. And lasers,
Yes.
lasers.
David
Well,
Bowie at Memorial as well.
Oh yeah, I was there, I remember. That was Adrian Ballou was playing guitar.
That's correct.
That Adrian Ballou, this amazing guitar player, came through Dallas 4 times over the course of a year and a half. And I saw him play with Frank Zappa at Memorial, and then David Bowie at Memorial, then Talking Heads, right when the Rain and Light had just come out, and then King Crimson at the Adore Ballroom.
And he's on Sarah Hickman's first Electro record.
I didn't know that.
He is. So there you go.
That's amazing.
God bless my head.
Oh yeah, one more thing about Shoko. I don't know if you guys know what Verilights are. Verilights are these light fixtures. I mean, typically, the way lighting was rigged before Verilights happened, they were all incandescent lights that were pretty much positioned in a certain spot on the floor, and that was it. They either went up and down, or on or off, and that was it. Verilights are these kind of motorized things that spin around, and you can redirect them to different spots on the stage, which at the time was remarkable technology. It just revolutionized lighting. And between that, and between the lasers and everything, Shoko, I mean, and very, very few people knew Shoko was a Dallas thing. But it is. It's one of the things that, you know, we're super proud of in retrospect. I'm wearing this shirt right now because here and at the Longhorn, we've got at least 3 or 4 guys who are all Shoko alumni. And Mike, the guy who's working with us tonight, has been on the road with Tom McCartney. He's been on the road with Eric Clapton. I mean, he has been around the world.
You do realize, if you go on eBay and try to buy an original Shoko shirt, that's not an original one.
No, it's
I knew guys who went to Thomas Jefferson in the 60s, who I was on the Alumni Association board with, worked for Shoko. They were very good friends with Cowleys.
Yeah.
So they had stacks of t-shirts.
Yeah.
So I've got one with Van Halen, I've got a...
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Those Shoko shirts sell for like $1,000.
I bet.
Like it was the mark of hip if you knew, worked for, or heard of Shoko.
Listen, I love wearing this
Oh,
shirt
yeah.
to work, you know, because people have all these stories. They knew people that worked at Shoko, or they worked for it, or they, you know, recognized the remarkable contribution to
The Some Girls Live movie shot at the Tarrant County Convention Center.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a show. That's literally an entire Shoko production.
yeah.
So you can go back and watch that entire thing.
It's definitely something to be proud of.
What happened to Shoko?
They sold out in 1990 to another company.
I think they made it to like 2000, didn't
No, was it that long? It may have been, but they were bought out.
they? Mike probably knows.
Yeah, it's about 2000.
Yeah.
Very like, it all got bought out.
Well, they're like modern, right?
No, Crystal Light, something like that.
Claire Fox.
Yeah. All right, so we've gone a long time, but yes, sir.
Cal Cold here.
Hey,
Listen,
like you got to introduce yourself. Everybody knows who you are.
K-O-N.
Oh, we call KON.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, yeah.
y'all haven't mentioned the old Rubio. That was the first club I ever went into.
Yeah.
Michael Martin Murphy played there all the time.
Yeah,
That's right.
I believe Mike Nesmith played there quite a bit.
yeah.
Yeah. First reggae band I ever saw was there. So, and like I said, the first club I'd ever been in. I didn't even know about tipping.
Well, there's the Rubaiyat, which was the folk club.
Right.
There was End of Coal, which
End of
also
Coal,
existed.
where
That's
Velvet
what
Underground
Velvet
recorded
Underground
live
played
album.
there.
That was a fun place.
I mean, everybody sat on beanbags apparently at the End of Coal. Is that right?
We sat in the parking lot in the front and the back and smoked joints. I don't know.
It's a great venue when you don't go inside.
Yeah, you gotta mention Angus's club too.
Yeah.
That's right, Soul City.
Soul City.
That was Angus Wynn's
I might
club.
have missed something. I don't know.
I'm telling you, I would love to see a list of all of the clubs from, good Lord, you're talking about, you got Short North Dallas, State Thomas, in the 50s and the 40s,
Yeah.
those clubs. You got the Green Parrot, the jazz clubs.
Yeah.
You
Granny's
got-
Dinner Theater.
Well,
Granny's was amazing. I don't know if anybody
Granny's,
says.
I mean, sure, Old Madrid is a lovely memory for those of us. I know.
Cellar Club?
The Cellar
Yeah.
Club, because I worked a block from the Cellar. The Cellar was on Commerce.
Primary Star. You know, the one they don't talk about a lot, or I never hear anybody, in Preston Center, they had a club, and I saw the Yardbirds.
They did. There was a club because it was right next to Preston Records.
It was amazing.
That's right.
Did any of y'all ever go to Granny's Dinner Theater?
Yeah.
Everybody went to
Our
Granny's.
Our family had like a season pass. I remember in one year we saw like Ray Charles, Tina Turner, who was just starting her solo career at the time.
Wasn't the beginning of Starplex out there somewhere?
No, that was the
Starfest.
that was Starfest. That was Jeff and I were talking about this last night. That was Starfest on the EDS campus at Hillcrest and Forest.
Park Central.
Park Central. That's
Yeah,
right. We used to go
parents
there
took me
all
there,
the
too.
time.
We saw Ringo Starr's All-Star.
Saw Ringo Starr's All-Star Band in their house.
Crosby, Stills, Nash.
James,
Santana.
James Taylor.
Was
Stevie Ray.
Was
You know-
Granny's at Ola Padrita?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was right next door to Old Padrita.
The most memorable show I saw at Starfest. Gallagher.
George Carlin at Granny's Dinner Theater was pretty nice.
Hey,
We
Robert,
saw,
can I
we
ask
saw
you a question
George
about
Benson in
the unicorn? I think this audience might know. I don't know if it's myth or legend, but when Liles and I were talking about going to redo the Longhorn Ballroom, we took our old friend Bobby Patterson. We drove down to DeSoto to Bobby's, and we kind of influenced Bobby with a trip to Papados. And
It's Bobby's favorite place.
yeah, that's it. So we went to lunch, and Liles, you remember this? And I said, well, Bobby, what was going on when you were coming up? This is in the '60s. And I swear to God, he told me this. This may be bullshit, or it may be true. So I'm asking the group, okay? Bobby said I was coming up in the '60s, and I was playing a lot, and I got this regular gig, and it started. The downbeat was at 6 o'clock sharp. And he said, man, I got the groove, and I was playing 4 nights a week, getting paid. And then he said, then we had to take a break, and then everybody got off, and then they would go eat the breakfast buffet. And then he kept going, and I was like, wait, time out. What was going on? He said that we would pick back up at 7:30. And what Bobby proceeded to tell me was there was a club, a blues club, right over by the old Parkland, okay? And he said he was playing a gig that would start at 6 a.m. in the morning, a blues club, and he would play till 8:30. And it was all the people that were working shift work over at Parkland Hospital that were getting off that. So does anybody recognize an old blues club that would have been around Maple that had a 24-hour opportunity?
I will look that up because I want to know that name now.
Because Bobby's not full of it like I am.
I'll tell you this. Bobby Patterson is the only Dallas musician who was interviewed in the Warren Commission report. Because Bobby Patterson was managed by Jack Ruby. So Bobby is not full of shit. That guy's got stories for days.
Bobby showed up the other night at Jeff Tweedy's show.
Well, because Jeff Tweedy covered one of his songs, "You Don't Have to See to See Through You."
Yeah.
Covered by Wilco, but never released, and then covered by Golden Small.
Yeah.
Can we get Bobby on stage here at the Kessler?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bobby's played here.
No, get him to talk.
Yeah.
Robert, you in?
As long as you have 5 hours, but yes. I would be more than happy. I'm very fortunate that I brought Bobby out of retirement. I got Bobby on stage with Golden Small at South by Southwest in 1996, where he sang, "She Don't Have to See You to See Through You," which is a song about a guy running around with his wife,
Yeah.
while he's singing it with
Jeff Tweedy.
a member of Golden Smog, who I won't mention it, who at the time was going through a divorce after having been busted running around with his wife. And Bobby's singing it to the guy, and the guy's looking very uncomfortable. And he's a very well-known musician. It was not Jeff Tweedy, but it was a remarkable experience. Bobby Patterson is, I maintain that there are, of my list of 10 greatest Dallas songs, TCB or TYA by Bobby Patterson, and possibly She Don't Have to See You, and possibly How Do You Spell Love, or all on that.
And he was a radio DJ too.
He was on KKDA.
Yeah, very influential radio DJ. Hey, before we wrap this up, we gotta talk about the Bronco Bowl.
I'm wearing the shirt, see, we had to remind each other. I did drive by the Home Depot. I can tell you where the stage was in the Home Depot, if you ever want to know.
Why didn't the Home Depot tear down the bowling alley and leave the auditorium there and just make it the Home Depot auditorium?
You know, if only they thought of it. Why didn't they? Because that's not their business model.
I know, but still, it's you're tearing down.
Would you like hardware and Bruce Springsteen?
That's like tearing down the East Wing
Lowe's
of the White
would've done
House,
it.
you know, I mean.
Lowe's. True Value would have done it. The true value of Bronco, the ballroom at the Bronco. Look,
Now, the Bronco Bowl was amazing. It literally was a Dallas landmark. I mean,
it was, Lamar Hunt built it.
yeah.
Dude.
Lamar Hunt, y'all know who he is. He was the guy that owned the other Dallas football team that moved to Kansas City.
The Dallas Texans.
But what I want to talk about as far as the Bronco Bowl goes is it had the guy who owned Hot Club, Mark Lee, and his partner Danny Eaton were the ones who started doing alternative rock bands and punk bands and new wave bands there in 1980 and 81. It was an extension of what they were doing at the Hot Club.
They would do Hot Club Presents at the Bronco Bowl.
Right.
I
And
have a poster in my bedroom, hanging on my bed, the giant poster. The Hot Club Presents at the Bronco Bowl. Flock of Seagulls. Joking Carrasco, Flock of Seagulls, the producers, and there was one other band, but I was at that. I was there. Squeeze. It was Squeeze.
man, they had the foresight to get that building and get it going. A lot of people my age didn't know the Bronco Bowl had this whole other life before Mark and Danny started booking shows.
It had bands there in the 60s.
They had Chubby Checker, Fats Domino, the Everly Brothers.
Lee Harvey Oswald had a ticket to one of those shows in his pocket when he was captured.
Yeah.
He had gone to the Bronco Bowl for a concert,
Yeah.
just like us. Lee Harvey was just like us.
There's your book title.
That's it, Lee Harvey. We are all Lee Harvey Oswald.
No, the Longhorn Ballroom was very similar to the Bronco Bowl in the respect that it had this life beforehand, before it became the Longhorn Ballroom. It was Bob Wills Ranch House, and it had this, history of Nat King Cole and Al Green and Ray Charles and Millie Jackson and all those people playing there. So when the Bronco Bowl came back in 1980 or 81, I mean, you had so many artists that went on to be huge. U2, The Cure, The Smiths, The Clash, they all played there. And it was incredibly unique. I mean, just in the same way that the Longhorn has this incredible personality and architecture and history and all that, the Bronco Bowl had archery range, it had bowling lanes, it had this whole other,
I worked the U2 show.
Oh, you did?
I was a ticket taker in the Golden Horseshoe.
Wow. I had fourth row to that show.
Well, I had to let you into the Golden Horseshoe.
It was $11 for a fourth row seat to see U2.
What year was that?
1982, I believe. It was on a war tour. Yeah.
Look, man, I maintain to this day that the best shows I ever saw were all at the Bronco.
Of course.
And a couple at the Fair Park Band Show.
Yeah.
R.E.M. at the band show,
Yeah.
Joe Jackson,
R.E.M. at the
David
Bronco.
Byrne. But R.E.M., the Replacements, Public Enemy at the Bronco Bowl. I can name 500 shows that were at the Bronco Bowl.
Oh my God, it was just across the board.
Squeeze
Metallica.
twice. There were 800, 500, a million shows.
Yes.
And the last one, I was there for the very last night with Hagfish and
1999,
Bowling for
yeah.
Soup and Not All Jet. The night Polyphonic Spree and Phone played. I mean, I had a friend of mine, a former colleague from the Observer, Ginger Griffiths, actually ended up booking the second iteration of the Bronco Bowl because remember, it closed for a while, then it came back with that new logo, that awful shitty sign up front. Not this one. This was the sign. But yeah, the Bronco Bowl was the best venue in town.
Well, when anybody talks about venues in general, they talk about the aesthetics, they talk about the sound, they talk about the production and the layout, the sight lines, and all the mechanical things that make a venue appealing or not. But ultimately, what it boils down to in any venue is the curation.
Mm-hmm.
It's the legacy and the history of the artists that have played there. That's what makes it. because those are the memorable experiences. You know, you remember what the place looked like and sounded like and all that, but
And when
man,
Peter Tosh was there, I remember what it smelled like.
God, when Peter Tosh played there, I thought I was seeing Jesus.
Oh, I was at that show with my cousin.
It was so fucking heavy.
It was 150 degrees in there.
Yes.
And he smoked a joint as big as you.
Yes. They had this white robe on, and he put his arms out like that. I was like, this is as close as I'm ever going to get to a fucking religious experience.
I thought it was as close as I was ever going to get to an emergency room in death.
I jumped in the fucking car and went to Austin and saw him again the next night at Meadowlands.
That was one of the greatest shows
Yes, it was incredible.
I also saw Frankie Goes to Hollywood there. I mean, I saw some shitty shows there too. What can I say? My girlfriend demanded we go see Belouis Sommet and Frankie Goes to Hollywood. But I'll never forget, Adam and the Ants played.
Dude, I've got a story about that night.
But that night, Adam and the Ants were playing. The next night, the Pretenders were playing.
Yeah.
Standing next to us in the Golden Horseshoe, Chrissy Hahn
Yeah.
and James Henry Scott. It was magic. The place was magic.
The night that Adam Ant played there, okay, the opening act was this band called NXS.
That's the
Okay, and there was this girl that I had gone to high school with who I really wanted to go out with. I finally got her to go out with me that night to that show. And so we're sitting there and NXS plays, and after they're over, she says, I gotta go to the bathroom. She got up and split and weaseled her way backstage, met their drummer, and married him.
I feel like after an hour and 37 minutes, that's an excellent place to end it.
Dude, ditch me at the show. I'm sitting there by myself going, where'd she go? I found out later, she's in Australia.
Jeff, this is always the most fun. Thank you for everybody. If I did anything tonight, somebody's going to write a book, somebody's going to make a documentary, somebody's going to do something out of it.
Before we leave, just for a
Yeah.
second, I want to turn the house lights on and acknowledge some people that are here. If that's okay with y'all. Because I know the people that are here tonight are the people that really care about this stuff. And that means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to you.
I can't believe anybody comes to these.
Yeah, you know, I love the fact that Lisa Taylor's here. Because like you mentioned, she was one of the first people to wrote about the film.
And I was a reggae DJ, you forgot that part.
Was it what? A reggae DJ on Canada? Yeah.
You know why? Because she had night moves.
Oh, thanks.
Bob Watson's here. Bob was the lead singer of a band called Shallow Rain. Shallow Rain, if you ever saw the Oliver Stone movie, Born on the 4th of July, they do a Creedence Clearwater Revival song. Born on the Bayou. Born on the Bayou, yeah. And Brian, got the bass player, Slaughterman here. Who else is there? I love Slaughterman. You guys, if you've never heard Slaughterman, you gotta check them out. They literally have some of the best songs.
They were responsible for my greatest headline in the Observer. The best band in town has the worst name in town.
But if you know what where the name comes from.
I know, but at the time, it's just like, come on. Slaughterman, I will contend, is a top 10 all-time Dallas.
Brent Best is, I mean, his lyrics are so amazing. If you just sit there and look at Brent's lyrics on paper, it just brings tears to your eyes, you know? He's so fucking literate, man. Anybody else you want to mention here that you see?
Ken? Is Ken still here? No, Ken's left. Ken got out of here.
Dale, because he's heard me tell all these stories a million times. Pat Ramser's here. Pat is our poster artist here at the Kessler. He does all this stuff is hanging in the lobby right now. Pat is a Dallas musician and it's been around forever. He's a really great guy.
So if you do this, by the way, the storytellers again, you're gonna do so. You're gonna have somebody else sitting in that chair, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because you do want to do this again.
Yes.
With other people, like.
I do. You know what I'm thinking about doing?
Oh, you're getting a sneak preview. You stuck around this long.
Well, this is it. I'm actually I'm interested to see if they'd be interested in doing this. We did a thing about 4 or 5 years ago called Spirit of Radio, and you hosted it.
I did.
And we had all these legendary radio DJs here talking about kind of the emergence of FM radio and how it changed.
There's a lot of zoo and Q102 talk.
Yeah.
The importance of Dallas.
Yeah. And that's Shannon. Shannon got me high for the first time.
Hey, do you wanna tell your mom?
She knows. Her mom was my mom's best friend.
Oh, hey.
She
They're
said,
all, see, now it really comes full
Yeah,
circle, going back to the first question.
hey, she stole her mom's weed and got me stoned for the first time. I was like, what are we doing here? I had no idea, you know.
I'd like to meet the Jeff Liles who had no idea what was going on with weed.
No, she had this little machine that she put the pot in and rolled it. I didn't even know what she was doing. You know, I thought she was making cookies or something. But anyway, I'm glad you're here, Shannon.
I would miss it.
Shannon's family and my family go way back to kindergarten, you know, to kindergarten or first grade, something like that. Rick Shue, I'm glad you're here tonight. Thanks for being here.
So you wanna do another radio one?
Yes, I got this idea, and maybe shoot it down if you don't think this is a good idea.
Oh, I'll tell you.
So Jody Dean reached out to me. Jody Dean is a local.
I talked to Jody today.
Yes. So Edwin and Jody ran into each other somewhere, and he wants to do a night like this for Bo Roberts.
Oh, so he hinted that in a text message to me today.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
Well, I think we should do, so I was there, by the way. I was there the day they fired the entire Q102 staff.
That's what I told Jody, is that you should be the one to interview
Well,
Bo.
I was there the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a horrible, but Bo had already been fired by that point. I was there when Redbeard got fired.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than watching Redbeard get fired.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not the way you want to go out as a kid. I mean, I love that guy. LaBella, Rhodey, and Redbeard, and Bo and Jim, and Chris and Liza. But yeah, so.
Y'all think that if we did one of these for Bo Roberts, you think people would come soon?
I think there could also be one. No, they'll talk about it. We don't need to pitch.
No, I'm curious. I'm always curious because you don't know until you know, until that
That'd
moment.
be a great one.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
But
I'm
you
sure
need to have
that
bands.
radio guys always have incredible stories because they've met everybody. You know?
That is correct.
And there's a kid here, Patrick McCurdy. His dad was a famous DJ on KYF. Dapper Dan McCurdy was one of the guys who announced the Beatles when they went on stage in the World Auditorium. Yeah. And I love radio people. You know,
I used to fall asleep with transistor radio under my ear listening to KNUS, the live shows from KCW. That was my whole life, was listening to the radio. I would not be here without DJs, without the radio, without these live shows, without the call room. It was all very much part of my life.
KZW was very much a culture.
I have a zoo sticker. I have 5,000 zoo stickers.
Yeah.
We should sell zoo stickers next time.
Yeah.
Everybody would buy one. They're on eBay. I tell you, they're not fun. They're not hard to find. Well, thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Guys. And keep supporting my music because we need you too. I'm telling you, we're out there to rough patches this country, and we could definitely use your support to keep the creative arts going. Yeah.
Lisa, do you want your clips? Bruce Springsteen show. Hey, man. Hey. Good. How are you? Good. Nice to see you, man. Nice to see you. I just wanted to say, girl, I'm literally the You're mighty kind. Here, Lisa.
I'm about to throw them out.
What? The other Times Herald? Why?
It's good to see see you. Thank you. Oh, yeah. I just went back over there to see you.
I know, I heard.
Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah. I would have liked to have room. Well, I enjoy it. Maybe I'll get to see you guys soon.
Thank you, brother. Good job.
Hey, Jeff. You got a picture right here, Robert. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hang on just a second. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Of course.
Oh, wait, hold on. Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Good to see you.
See you, brother. You guys do it again.
What do you think about Gallagher? Did you like Gallagher?
No, I just happened to be in my mom did, mom and dad.
He sold his act to his younger brother.
I know.
He has teenage
Oh, really? Really? Oh, you want to bring her again?
I'll get on here.
You got to stay in